continuing discussing Guru issues. Today speaking about rubber-stamped gurus. You may have heard the term. It's a term of scorn in regard to the GBC system of approving gurus, giving... Well, what goes on? Exactly what this system is that someone, a devotee, generally it's been disciples of Srila Prabhupada, may apply or to be a guru, or they may be put forward by the local body in the area they're residing, which can be problematic if they're a traveling sannyasi. But anyway, the idea is that they have to be approved by devotees who know them, who they work with, who think that they are competent to represent Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara and ISKCON in the most important service of Guru. When I say most important, that doesn't undermine any other. Most important, just like Srila Prabhupada said, several services. By saying most important, it means very important, the very important service of Guru. And then if they are approved by local devotees who have office within ISKCON, then their name may be forwarded to the GBC, who will formally approve that by vote. Now, you maybe say that you can't vote someone to be an acharya. We'll get back to that. There is quite widespread disapproval of this approval system, saying that, well, especially after the Guru has passed away from our mortal vision, then any disciple of his can initiate, if someone agrees to be his disciple. I don't disagree with that. Of course, I am only one small person, but I have, for better or worse, undertaken to speak on these topics, to try to give some perspective on these topics, which anyone is welcome to listen to or not listen to or agree with or disagree with in this highly individualistic and supposed to be democratic kind of world. So, okay, any disciple can initiate after the passing of their Guru. And to initiate, they do not require the approval of anybody. I agree with that, but there's a but to come with that, and I'll get back to that but later. This rubber stamp guru idea is scorned by some devotees. They object to it. Let's not use such strong words. Here's something which I received from one of my godbrothers a few months ago. Apparently he sent it out to many devotees and myself also. So he wrote, I do not condemn our GBC godbrothers for their errors, yet I wonder how we can believe that Krishna is directly guiding their hand, which is a requirement, in my understanding, for granting a guru appointment. As an example, had the GBC resisted the urge to assume this authority in 1977, 1978, we would not have had the absurd zonal acharya era, which decimated the energy and faith of the movement, because most of those endorsed by the GBC were extremely unfit. Srila Prabhupada desired all of his disciples to become guru, and I fail to see how this is a restricted authority for GBC. Okay, there are many points there which could be discussed, but I'll go on. A quote from Srila Prabhupada's purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 1, text 220. Mundane votes have no jurisdiction to elect a Vaishnava Acharya. A Vaishnava Acharya is self-effulgent, and there is no need for any court judgment. Srila Prabhupada was here referring to the court battle that had been going on among various disciples of his Guru Maharaj, his God, in other words, Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, a court case as to who could be the Acharya of the Gauriya mission, or Gauriya Math institution, and that came to a court. Ultimately, it came to a court. That was over the division of the property, and but Srila Prabhupada's point here is that votes given by a jury or a judge panel in a court, the decision of a court doesn't decide who's an Acharya. A Vaishnava Acharya is self-effulgent, and there is no need for any court judgment. All right, that's one statement. Of course, it has to be considered if the operation of the GBC is mundane, as it's going on under the order of Srila Prabhupada. It doesn't completely match with the idea of a court of people who are not practicing Vaishnavas. These are all very subtle considerations. From Srila Prabhupada's purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 1, chapter 1, text 35, it is imperative that a serious person accept a bona fide spiritual master in terms of the Shastric injunctions. Sri Jiva Goswami advises that one not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social and ecclesiastical conventions. One should simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. This is quoting from, I believe, the Anubhashya of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, either that or Amrita Pravaha Bhashya of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Prabhupada, many of Srila Prabhupada's purports to Chaitanya Charitamrita are pretty much just taken directly from the commentaries of Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There was something going on very seriously at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and even more so at the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that the Gauriya Vaishnava Sampradaya had gone along in that line. Most people who identified themselves as Gauriya Vaishnavas would take initiation in a hereditary line. Quoting Jiva Goswami, one should not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social and ecclesiastical conventions. If one is born in what's called a Vaishnava family, he takes initiation from a Vaishnava guru. And there's the Vaishnava guru caste, the Goswami caste. Some people are barbers by caste, some people are clerks by caste, some people are butchers by caste, some people are thieves by caste. So many, jati, called jati, not exactly the four varnas. And some people are gurus by caste, and their son becomes a guru, and then the son of the son of the disciple becomes the guru's son's disciple, and it goes on like that. And it may be just a convention. We're Vaishnava, we're born in a Vaishnava family, and we worship Krishna, we do Sankirtan, and we have our guru, and probably most of the Vaishnavas were eating fish, and they may not be very serious about their practice in so many ways. But beginning with Bhaktivinoda Thakur and taken up on a war footing by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was trying to get people seriously interested in Krishna consciousness. A serious person accepts a bona fide spiritual master. Not that everyone who was a hereditary guru, a caste Goswami, or their followers, not that all of them were not serious. See, it's all nuanced. But many people who were sincerely and seriously wanting to come to the essence of Vaishnavism instead of just accepting a guru because as a formality, they came to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for initiation, defying hereditary, customary, social, and ecclesiastical conventions. An example of that is our own worshipable Gurudev, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who was, as a formality, initiated by a guru in his childhood, and never seems gave any importance to that, and eventually took actual initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Anyway, let's go on, because there's a lot to discuss. Here is an extract from a conversation in 1977 between Srila Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna Goswami. Srila Prabhupada said, "What is the use of producing some rascal guru?" Tamal Krishna, "Well, I have studied myself and all your disciples, and it's a clear fact that we are all conditioned souls, so we cannot be gurus. Maybe one day it will be possible, but not now." Prabhupada, "Yes, I shall choose some guru. I shall say, now you become Acharya. You become authorized. I am waiting for that. You become all Acharya. I retire completely, but the training must be complete." Tamal Krishna Goswami, "The process of purification must be there." Prabhupada, "Oh yes, must be there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants that. Amaragyai Guru Hoya. You become guru, but be qualified. Little thing, strictly follower." Tamal Krishna, "Not rubber stamp." Prabhupada, "Then you'll not be affected. Then you'll not be effective. You can cheat, but it will not be effective. Just see our Gauriya Mat. Everyone wanted to become guru, and a small temple and, quotation mark, guru. What kind of guru? No publication, no preaching. Simply bring some foodstuff. My Guru Maharaj used to say, joint mess, a place for eating and sleeping. Kawa dawa ada karna. Joint mess. He said this. So, the term rubber stamp in connection with gurus was used by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Prabhupada approved that. Interestingly, the term, in a discussion with Srila Prabhupada, it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj who introduced the term Ritvik, and Srila Prabhupada also approved that. Okay, here I'm just going to read from a letter to myself from someone who identifies himself as an ex-disciple of Bhakti Vikasa Swami. He found his real guru on the internet, who, from what I can see, has got very little to offer except criticism. Anyway, this ex-disciple wrote, quoting this, "We see Srila Prabhupada says here that he will choose, and the qualification of the Diksha Guru, he, she must be a liberated soul. Are ISKCON gurus all fake? Question mark. All are rubber stamped, including yourself." I'm not going to get into this now because I have discussed it previously, but the qualification to be a guru, and I'm going to discuss it some more also. The different statements are made by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, I've already discussed that at quite some length. And again, I plan to discuss it. But exactly that everyone who's initiating has to be on the level of a super Maha Bhagavat Paramahamsa has not been the tradition. Srila Prabhupada, in the same conversation that's being quoted here, says for Guru, he quotes Amar Agyai Guru Hoya, quoting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. which he often quoted, that you become a guru by preaching Krishna consciousness. And also, he said strictly following. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada wrote in a Bhagavatam purport, no one should be allowed to sit on the Vyasa-san who is not spotless in character. In this case, he mentioned spotless in character. Okay, now I'm going to take a few quotes from Srila Prabhupada where he uses this term rubber stamp. And I'm going to show how Srila Prabhupada used it. This, first of all, I'm going to quote a well-known verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 14. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha drudha-vrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Srila Prabhupada starts the purport by saying, the Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man, because the word Mahatma is used in the previous verse. Mahatma nastu mang partha daiving prakriti ashritaha bhajantya danya manaso gyatva bhutadiva. And then this verse, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, further describes the symptoms of a Mahatma. So Srila Prabhupada says the Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. I suspect there's some hint of Mahatma Gandhi there. The symptoms of the Mahatma are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. Okay, so just by calling, so in other words, you can't just rubber stamp an ordinary man and make him a Mahatma. He might, like Mahatma Gandhi, go by that title, but it's not according to the Shastric description. He actually has to be a Mahatma, not simply by rubber stamping. Some other quotes for which I didn't keep the references. Srila Prabhupada from a conversation. We don't follow and still we rubber stamp. I am Christian. I am this. I am that. We must, then another one. We must know what is dharma and what is adharma. Simply rubber stamp. I am Christian. I am Hindu. I am Muslim. So, what is this? Srila Prabhupada's saying that it's not enough simply to take the designation that I am a Christian, but one has to follow also. We don't follow and still be rubber stamp. I am Christian. I am Hindu. I am Muslim. So, to be called a Christian is not wrong in itself, but one actually has to follow to be a Christian. So the rubber stamp that someone is a guru doesn't mean they're not a guru just because they're called a guru, but they actually have to act as a guru. Not simply by rubber stamp, yes, you're a guru. They actually have to act as a guru. Simply rubber stamp. I am Christian, I am Hindu, I am Muslim, I am this, like the tilak and mala. No, you must know the science. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends Jai Krishna Tatta Beta Shri Guru Hoy. Jai Krishna Tatta Beta Shri Guru Hoy. Any person who knows about Krishna perfectly well, he is Guru. That's all, he is Guru. So it's not simply by rubber stamp or approving that one is a Guru. One actually has to act as a guru and be a guru. However, the approval does not disqualify one from being a guru. Then this is from Science of Self-Realization. The process of chanting the Lord's holy name and distributing prasadam will be effective if carried out by persons who are actually practicing religion. My disciples are trained to strictly follow religious principles, and therefore their chanting of the holy name of God is different from others. Theirs is not simply a rubber stamp position. They have realized the purifying power of the holy name. So again, Srila Prabhupada is using the term rubber stamp, that they're not simply doing the external practices of religion, but they're actually practicing religion. They're strictly following religious principles, and therefore their chanting of the holy name is different from others. Because they are strictly following religious principles, Srila Prabhupada says, they have realized the purifying power of the holy name through practice. So it may be that someone is rubber stamped as a Vaishnava and is chanting the holy name and distributing prasadam. And they may seem to be a Vaishnava. But because they don't, if someone doesn't properly follow the regulated principles, they cannot come to the actual position of a Vaishnava. Now, from a lecture in 1969, Srila Prabhupada says, there was agitation in India that Gandhi stamped some persons as Harijan. They were coming from the bhangis, sweepers or cleaners of the toilet room, so Gandhi accepted them as Harijans. So Harijan means a person of God. The British government was creating faction between high caste and low caste, so Gandhi thought, I shall make these bhangis and chamars as Harijans, as great devotees. But simply by rubber stamping, how can one become a devotee? In other words, the very lowest class people, Gandhi didn't want to see that they're looked down on, so he called them Harijans, people of God, which is the highest position. But what happens is that previously they may be called chamar, bhangi, which refers to their jati, again, their profession by birth. And they're looked down on. So if you call them, Gandhi thought if you call them Harijan, then people will look up to them instead. But what happened instead is that the term Harijan became pejorative. It's the same thing. People whose descendants were their ancestors were from Africa. In America, they used to be called Negroes or niggers, which are insulting, but as an insulting term. So different terms are employed. Blacks, persons of color, well, that includes others apart from descendants of persons from Africa. Blacks, people of Afro-Americans. But if the attitude is one of a derogatory attitude, then you can give some different title, but that different title again becomes derogatory. So Gandhi thought, I shall make these bhangis and chamars as Harijan, as great devotees, but simply by rubber stamping, how can one become a devotee? That is not possible. Without undergoing the pancharatriki vidhi, they remain the same unclean drunkard and the all-nonsense habits. Because generally the people of those low caste, or low, they're looked down on, not just because they're cleaning the toilets and this and that, but drinking alcohol, rough behavior, and coarse, and illicit sex, and so many things. Maybe it was generally associated with that. So simply by calling them a Harijan, as Srila Prabhupada says, simply by rubber stamping Harijan, no. It doesn't work. Here, what we are doing, Srila Prabhupada says, is not rubber stamping. It's actually training according to the Pancharatriki Vidhi. We are training all boys to become brahmanas. to refrain from 4 kinds of sinful activities, to take bath, to take this, take that, and above all, chanting Hare Krishna, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing of all sinful activities. So, again, Srila Prabhupada states, it's not simply by giving a title, but if one actually follows, then he comes to the position. So the aim of having this system of approval is not to just rubber stamp. Okay, we like you, so we'll give you an approval. Then you can be a guru. Then you can initiate. But there is a purpose. There should be a check and balances that should be seen if persons are going to initiate it. The persons who are going to initiate within ISKCON are teaching according to the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. If they're acting according to they're following the regulative principles. That the idea is that there should be some standard which should be followed according to what Srila Prabhupada said and in accord with tradition. Not that, well, anyone can just initiate and say, I'm a guru within ISKCON, and they set up their own ideas. So it's like it also helps that people who are coming, I'll get back to that a little later, they may not know, they could be misled by anyone who's charismatic. So it gives some idea for those who are coming. It's not mandated that you must take initiation from anyone. But the idea is that, well, the GBC takes a risk in doing so. The society takes a risk in doing so. But at least they can say that from what we have seen, this person is strictly following the line of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, and is not mentally disturbed, is not grossly exploitive, and is teaching and preaching. And from what we can see, they have these qualifications. They're not saying that they came from the spiritual world directly on a Vaikuntha swan or any such thing, but that is implied in the approval system. That's implied. Now, Srila Prabhupada often states about prospective disciples recognizing and selecting a guru, which seems in line with current GBC guidelines. Again, Sri Jiva Goswami advises that one not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social and ecclesiastical conventions. One should simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. And this is a point that the GBC does emphasize, that the individual disciple is it's not just that there's a list and you choose one, or you close your eyes and go like this, boom, and put your finger there. The disciple is supposed to himself or herself examine and see, although there is the danger, and that it's there, it can be there, that devotees think, well, okay, if they're approved by others, then must be good enough for me, and okay, let's go for it. In actually both the Vedic and the Pancharatric tradition, which run on side by side, we're talking about the traditional society within India, both smarta in broad terms, and Vaishnava. But Vaishnava and Smarta often overlap also. Let's not get into that. Anyway, the tradition is, you go to any traditional Vedic sampradaya, or even to a yoga school, or even Buddhists or Jains for that matter, who are outside the Vedic tradition, outside, but so many things in common. But what happens is, gurus to be are appointed by their own gurus. Here in South India, that's often done well in advance. So we have in the Shankara Mat, there'll be the guru, the next guru is already appointed, and the one after that also. So you have 3 generations at one time. You can have 3 generations at one time. And the one who's appointed to be a guru in future, after the demise of the present guru, is trained. The guru may have so many disciples, but one is being specifically trained to be guru in future. And the one after that also. So he may have many years of training when he actually accepts that post. And it's all very formal. It's known, Shankara, Madhva Sampradaya, it's like this is the way it's done. From a young age, someone is chosen. There's an installation, so Abhishek ceremony. And then for someone who is going to be the next guru in line. And then again, when he actually assumes that responsibility, then again there's an Abhishek ceremony. And just like in Udupi, for instance, Madhva line, there are different mats, the Purtige Mat and the Palima Mat and the 8 schools, plus there are 3 more, the 8 mat set up by Madhvacharya and 3 others which are recognized. And different families are connected to those different mats. And the boys and girls, no, the girls don't, it's a bit different in the Madhva line. In the Sri Vaishnava line, the girls also take Pancharatriki Diksha. But again, in Sri Vaishnava line, there are differences also. But if a family is, for instance, connected with the Palimamat, then they take Diksha, that means Upanayanam, in that mat. They don't go anywhere else. The boy doesn't select who his guru will be. Now, this is what you may call hereditary, customary, social convention. What word is used? Hereditary, social, customary, ecclesiastical conventions. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, as we see in the Madhva Sampradaya. The tradition is preserved. Srila Prabhupada even writes in a purport in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there are families who traditionally produce acharyas. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he once mentioned about the caste Goswamis, he was very much against the idea that only caste Goswamis can initiate. But at the same time, he was very close with some caste Goswamis who upheld the idea that caste Goswamis can initiate, and others who are qualified, and they specifically supported Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they also can initiate. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, actually the caste Goswami, they're something like lions who have been raised among lambs, and they don't realize that they're supposed to be lions. They've lost their potency. So actually, he wasn't against them being initiators. But he was against the idea of them just doing it as a profession, ecclesiastical convention, hereditary convention, and he was against the idea that they should block up anyone who's actually qualified from initiating. Now, what we have, well, I'll get back to that a little later. It's Sri Vaishnava tradition. The Matadipati means the head of the mat, the Acharya. The next one in line is assigned well in advance. And it may be that even in the lifetime of the Matadipati, and of course, the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is not one homogeneous whole. There are variations also. But it may be that when the Matadipati becomes old and in many functions he retires, and the next one takes up the service in his presence. But who his successor is well in advance. And there are two lines, of course, in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, broadly speaking, the Matadipati, and there are those who are Swayamacharyas. They're coming down in the seminal lineage, and same thing, it's well in advance. And the disciples, those who come forward for initiation, they take initiation from those who are appointed as gurus. It's a different system to the way we do it in ISKCON, but they are appointed as gurus. Now, this system has been going on for hundreds of years, and we see that good Vaishnavas come out of it up to the present day. It's a traditional system. Now, it is different from what we face in the world today, because in that system, the people who are becoming the gurus and people who are becoming the disciples are born in a whole culture, Vedic culture. They know what the standards of what it means to be a guru. They're trained to be a guru. They don't ever think of going out and smoking a cigarette, for instance, or even watching movies. Up to the present day, it's like that those who are raised in such families and those who are taking initiation. Also, although unfortunately things are breaking down, but the family would also be involved in who they send the disciple to. They would tell them, okay, now it's time for you to take initiation. Just like I was baptized as a baby in the Catholic Church, and at the age of 12 you go for confirmation. It's another ceremony in which you confirm that, yes, I was baptized when I was too young to think about it, but now I want to confirm that I actually want to be a Catholic. And actually 12 was too young also, because shortly after that I decided, well, I don't really want to go along with this. But the point is that a young boy is sent, 5 years old or whatever, in the traditional system for Vedic education, in which they're given Upanayanam, which is not exactly the same as Vaishnavi Pancharatriki Diksha, but it is an initiation. And a boy of 5 years old, he can't choose who I should go to. His family sends him. Bhishma chose Dronacharya to be the guru for teaching the Pandavas and the Kauravas Dhanurved. He was the Astra Shastra Acharya. Bhishma chose. The grandfather chose. The child is sent to a gurukul. Who sends? The family. The family decide who shall be the guru for the student. And the student has to approach with Samit Pani. He has to bring the wood. He approaches the group, but he's sent. Later, the student, as he gets older, he studies, he becomes more mature, and with the permission of his teacher, he may seek out other gurus for spiritual knowledge. The original guru, well, we have Vidyarambha, when this beginning of formal education, when the child first makes the aksharas, the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. That's not spiritual education in and of itself. So they get taught all these basics, and then later on they may go on to a spiritual guru, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu learned basic Sanskrit. Reading and writing, it's not mentioned, it's probably at home. But then basic Sanskrit from Gangadas Pandit. Later, and in Upanayanam he took at home in the family system. Then later he took spiritual initiation from Ishwarapuri. As he was older, when he decided what line he was attracted by Ishwarapuri. He personally decided. When he was more mature, more knowledgeable, and he knew what he was looking for and what standards are supposed to be there. So similarly in Sri Vaishnav system, the Upanayanam and study in the Ved Pathshala is there. That's the basic stuff for children. But then after, when they're older, then they can go for the Pancha Sanskar, the Vaishnavi Diksha. But generally in that, they would be in the family line also. Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to take initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was practically acting as the guru of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But he told him to take initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. It wasn't that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur chose or thought I should take initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Now, in our tradition, there are exceptions also, like Narottam Das. He approached Lokanath Goswami for initiation. Lokanath, he didn't have disciples, he didn't want to have the disciples. But at this point, Narottam also he knew what he was looking for, apart from being a Nitya Siddha devotee anyway. He knew what he was looking for. He knew what it means to be a Vaishnava. He was being trained in Vaishnavism by Jiva Goswami, none lesser than Jiva Goswami. And so there was a whole society of Vaishnavas there who approved of his approaching Lokanath Goswami, and who could and would have told him, they could have told him if he'd approached the wrong kind of person. Actually, the person you have approached, he doesn't have a very good reputation. He's not actually a good Vaishnava. They would have told him, but no one discouraged him from that, because they knew that Lokanath Goswami is topmost devotee. So Narottam Das did approach Lokanath Goswami, but with the at least tacit approval of all the other Vaishnavas there. Now, what we have going on in ISKCON today is that we have devotees who are not from any Vedic cultural tradition, and they're almost like the level of a child in terms of spiritual understanding by the time they come to start to take up Krishna or start to approach someone. And they may have been coming from a very sinful background, not just that they not coming from Vedic society, so they may not have a very clear idea of what it means to be a guru. They're supposed to have read Srila Prabhupada's books. They're supposed to have undergone some training, but it's still very new. So we may wonder, how mature are they to actually understand who should be their guru? Just as in the case with Lokanath Goswami, or with the case with I'm talking about the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. There are devotees who give initiation, but there's also a whole society of Vaishnavas. And in the case of Narottam Das approaching someone, or a Sri Vaishnava boy at the present time, they would be warned by... It's presumed that those who are accepted by others as Vaishnavas are fit to initiate, and if they weren't, then the other Vaishnavas would tell the prospective disciple, you better be careful, don't go there. Be careful. So it is a tacit approval. It's not an institutionalized system, but it's a tacit approval. It may be said, where in the Shastra does it say that a guru can be selected by a committee? Well, we should understand also that this idea of having an international society of multiple gurus, it is something new. And Shastra doesn't cover every conceivable situation that will ever happen in eternity throughout the material world. But Shastra does address the situation of various issues arising which are not directly or clearly covered in Shastra. Manu Sanghita gives directions as how to deal with situations that are not clearly and directly covered in Shastra and may be doubtful points of law. And there's a system. There's that Brahmanas who have deeply studied Shastra, who are respected for their proper behavior, those who have deeply considered and understood the basic understanding of what is Shastra and what is Dharma, they should come together and they should discuss. And they should decide what is proper to be done in such a situation. And even they go so far as to say that there should be people from different backgrounds, there should be, they should all know at least one of the three principal Vedas. There should be someone who is deeply into Nyaya Shastra, Mimamsa, one who knows the Nirukta, who can the grammatical, the word derivations. So there's a system that people. This is talking about law, Vedic law. How they should come together and they should discuss, and that in this case should be considered to be law, not that what just a whole bunch. Even if a huge number of ignorant men come together and say something, that doesn't count. Those who are actually following and are deeply immersed, those who are deeply immersed in Vedic knowledge and Vedic practice, they should come together and decide. That's all. So, it's not impossible or wrong that a group of practicing devotees can come together and approve that, well, this person, from what we see, and people can change. Actually, it's less likely that people who are raised in this culture are going to change, but things can change, especially in the modern world. But it's not, if we see this, what Manu says and what the tradition is, then that a body of practicing devotees say, okay, this person, we find him fit to approach for initiation. The idea that an institution can set, the idea that an institution can set standards is not wrong. A religious institution has to set standards. The present system has problems, no doubt. There are problems there. But like I said at the beginning, any disciple of Srila Prabhupada can, after his passing, initiate, but if someone agrees to be his disciple. But then, okay, all right, anyone, you can initiate. Someone wants to be your disciple, you can initiate. But is ISKCON as an institution obliged to accept them as representatives of the institution because someone takes initiation from them? Is ISKCON obliged to accept them as being representatives in the role of a guru? You can go through the formality of initiating someone, but no institution will accept that anyone who's a member can just like in a church. It's not that anyone can become a priest. Well, any male can become a priest. Nowadays, maybe female also. But you have to go through the training and get the approval and be officially inducted as a priest, although anyone can become a priest. And even after becoming a priest, you might fall away from that proper standard. But if you just say that, well, anyone can become a priest, but there are no checks and balances, then there'd be another set of problems. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. Is the present system perfect? No. But to out and out reject this system and say rubber stamp, you see Prabhupada talked about rubber stamp gurus. He did. But what Srila Prabhupada was against was not against, Srila Prabhupada is not against that someone should be instituted as a guru, because he said, I shall choose. And eventually Srila Prabhupada did choose names of 11 to act as proxies for himself at that time. So it's not against the tradition, and that someone will be chosen to take the role of a guru, to take the service of a guru. And in fact, religious institutions, even many of them that we're not very fond of, but they've sensibly, they see someone who is fit for the role, and then they induct them. It may be, you take it, I'm saying, with some institution we're not very fond of. Okay, well, let me say this. Chinmay Mission, Ramakrishna Mission, there may be so many. They have sannyasis, but it's not that everyone who's a sannyasi is a guru or the head of the institution, the one who initiates. Actually, they have something like a Ritvik system in the Ramakrishna Mission, if you like. On a Ritvik system, they have it in the Ramakrishna Mission. Something like that. But I'm making the point that an institution has a responsibility, in the matter of guiding people. Who are you going to take spiritual guidance from? They have some responsibility to guide people. Ultimately, it's up to the individual to make their own choice. They may choose to take initiation from someone who's not within the institution, but then they can't, on their own terms, operate within the institution. So the understanding of this is a bit more complex, a bit more nuanced than just saying, well, if you have to get approval from the GBC, that means you must be wrong. And it's probably more complex than saying that if you don't take initiation, if you don't get approval from the GBC and you initiate anyway, then you're wrong. And that's also not necessarily true. It's not such a simple thing as saying, oh, rubber stamp. Oh, you went through the GBC approval system and then you initiated, oh, that must be wrong. No, why? If you went through that system and took the blessings of the Vaishnavas, and as a service you initiate others, and you do so in that you give proper instruction according to Shastra, you act according to Shastra, then you act as a guru. That's all. Not so difficult to understand this. Making everything so complex. Hare Krishna. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dante nitaya churnakang padayo nipatya kritvacha kakushatameta daham bravimi he sadhava sakala eva vihaya durat. Gauranga chandra charane kurutanu ragaha. Parivadatu jano yatha tata va nanumukaro navayang vicharayamaha. Hari rasa madira madati mata bhuvi vilutama nartama nirvishama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.